Don't look now, but Deion Sanders and Colorado may have so much talent that they're going to have a slew of position battles this spring.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Board, but today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. We're talking about position battles, aka position wars in Boulder, because there is so much talent, so many good players all over the place, and Coach Prime and his company are going to have some tough decisions to make. And let's start with his former position, corner. Obviously, you already have Travis Hunter on one side. That spot is locked up. That spot is as good as gone for anyone else who would want to start there. But there's another spot on the other side of the ball, on the other side of the field. Who's going to start over there? I would say there's 4 contenders, possibly, if you want to get down to the nitty gritty. You have Cormani McLean, who I think is going to have a breakout year. Does he start right away, or does he have to work his way into the starting rotation like he did this past season where he started the last couple games? Does he have to work his way into the rotation, or does he start right away? You have Dylan McKinney, who was a proven commodity at Oklahoma State, played in the Big 12 already, younger guy. He's kind of everything you want in a transfer. He's someone who could come in, play right away, and also be there for a couple years. And then you have Omarion Cooper. Is he someone who could learn from last season? He played pretty much every game, started almost every game, I would say, opposite of Travis Hunter. And he had some bright moments and he had some not so good moments. Does he learn from last season and kind of take that next step and hold on to that starting spot? Or do they go with Preston Hodge, who is kind of a do-it-all type of guy? I've seen listed everywhere from safety to nickel. So we'll see what Preston Hodge's role is. But right now, it looks like there's 4 corners vying for that starting spot opposite of Travis Hunter. I think I would give the edge to Cormani McLean. I would say Dylan McKinney could form a dynamic duo with Travis Hunter if Cormani's not ready. But I do think Cormani is going to take a major step forward. I think he kind of got put into the pressure cooker this past season. Even though he didn't play a lot, it was, I think, being put on blast publicly by Coach Prime was a major wake-up call for him. I think even in hearing him talk in these well-off media videos, he's got a different mentality, which I think is important. And I realistically think that he is ready to take the next step mentally. It's just a matter of doing all the right things, watching film, practicing, working on his technique. And obviously, he's always practicing, but practicing outside of practice. Obviously, that's a huge thing in college athletics is you have to put in the work when no one's watching. So that way, when they are watching, you are able to take that next step. So I think corner is one of the ones that stands out to me the most. And there's a few on the offensive side of the ball. We're just going to go with receiver as a whole. I'm looking at the depth chart in front of me right now, like a projected depth chart that I jotted down. And there's Will Shepherd, the Vanderbilt transfer, Terrell Timmons, the North Carolina State transfer, Cordell Russell, baby T.O., and he's a TCU transfer. Didn't play at all last season, but he's 6'4". He's massive. Obviously, if you go by baby T.O., you have to have some sort of size and ability to you, right? Well, I would say that's one battle right there. I would give the edge to Will Shepherd. He's a proven commodity in the SEC. Played really well with poor quarterback play at Vanderbilt. So having one of the best quarterbacks in the country should help his case. Let's see if he can hold on to that starting spot. Travis Hunter, I think he's a bona fide star at receiver. I think he could be a first-round pick at receiver if he wanted to be. But I also think, do they need him to play wide receiver all the time? I don't know. I think he is capable of it, but do they care about him on defense? Because if they care about him on defense, they're going to rest him at times so that way he could be his best on defense. But then you also have Omarion Miller, who's vying for a spot. He had 198 receiving yards against USC, and I was like, oh, dude, this guy just emerged. He just exploded. It's Miller time, Omarion Miller time at that. And all of a sudden, he only had he ended the year with 234 yards. So what is that? 234 minus 198 for you math whizzes out there. Say it with me. It is 36 yards the rest of the season. So he went from like exploding, breaking records to, okay, what happened to him? He's a big guy. He kind of burst on the scene and then just disappeared. Does he kind of take that next step as a receiver and kind of emerge as a starter? Does he kind of push Travis Hunter for reps at that wide receiver position? Then they have Cameron McKell, He could play really anywhere. He played quarterback, running back, and defense back in high school. Can he develop into a receiver right away at the college level? We'll see. I think as someone's that athletic, they obviously have a say in things. And then in the slot receiver, Colorado brings in Draylon Miller, four-star receiver, had 5,000 all-purpose yards this past season. They also bring in LeJohntay Wester, who was second in the country, I believe, in catches. And they have Jimmy Horn, who was obviously one of Shador's favorite targets last season and maybe one of Coach Prime's favorite players because he was obviously the first guy to earn his number. Does Jimmy Horn start? I don't think there's a world where he doesn't. I think when Scott Proctor came on the show, he didn't have Jimmy Horn starting, if I remember correctly. So there's a world where Jimmy Horn Jr. is not a starter this next season because they are so deep. There's a world where LeJohntay Wester on the other end, a guy who had 100-something catches this past season, was I think first or second in the country in catches. There's a world where he doesn't start. There's a world where you bring in a guy like Will Shepherd who has SEC experience and maybe he gets surpassed by Baby T.O. They have so many weapons at wide receiver. I genuinely don't know how it's going to battle out. I don't know who's going to claim what spots. Obviously, not all these guys are on campus yet, but it's just going to be so intense. It's going to be a really heated battle for those wide receiver positions. And we're going to see how many guys they rotate in. Last season, they didn't rotate a lot of guys in. Is it going to be the first 4 or 5 guys, or is it going to be 6 deep, 7 deep? Who knows? They may have so many weapons that they might have to kind of adjust who they are bringing in and playing, because obviously having that many guys is sort of the rich getting richer, but it's also kind of a difficult decision to make. Then my third and final position war, if you will, is the offensive line. I think you could look everywhere on this offensive line and make a case for everyone. Jordan Seaton coming in, starting at left tackle right away. Is he going to kind of take the tackle spot from whoever else it may be? I know David Connor wants to start. I know there's Khalil Benson. Obviously, he's a right tackle, but do they slide him over to left tackle for the meantime? Savion Washington, he played right tackle this past season. So you have Jordan Seaton looking to start at left tackle right away as a freshman. You have Khalil Benson coming in from Indiana, looking to steal that spot from Savion Washington, who started every game this past season. You have Justin Mayers and Tyler Brown duking it out at left guard. I know Tyler Brown was taking some snaps at center, but does he? I don't know if he's ready to play center right away, and I don't know if you risk that. So he's going to be duking it out with Justin Mayers, who was at one point rated as the highest transfer portal addition at the offensive line spot for Colorado. Then you have right guard. I feel like that one could be pretty much Tyler Johnson's position to lose. But again, so many guys they brought in. Center, they have Yakiri Walker, who they brought in from UConn, but they also have Hank Zelinkis. I always struggle with his name. He stuck around last season, played, started a couple games when Van Wells couldn't go. So the offense line, they brought in all these new guys, and they have guys from last season that didn't get to play due to injury, like David Connor. Who's going to start? Who's going to claim these starting spots? It's going to be a really interesting battle. I'm telling you right now, I don't know if we'll have the answers to any of these questions right away. It wouldn't shock me if there's a couple position battles that maybe are won in spring, and then all of a sudden it's week 3 in fall or in the season, and it's like, okay, you know what? Someone's taken over here as the starter. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see, because there are so many intriguing battles. You guys comment below what you think the most intriguing battle is this offseason, because they got some good ones. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. You could bet on LeBron James to get a triple-double maybe. You could bet on, who knows, Anthony Davis to get a double-double, Nikola Jokic to get a triple-double. Maybe pair that a Nikola Jokic triple-double with a Denver Nuggets win, because I feel like when he gets those, they're winning games. If you want to get in on this action, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. I'm not sure if it's possible, but I think Colorado and Coach Prime sort of had an under the radar offseason. And you're probably like, what the actual hell are you talking about? But hear me out. Last season, Coach Prime gets hired. It's exciting, right? Everyone's like, oh my goodness, Deion Sanders. He's a Power 5 coach now. Everyone is watching Colorado. I think people were aware of him being at Jackson State. I think a lot of loyal fans were watching those Jackson State games, but I don't think the college football world as a whole was tuned into Jackson State as much as they were tuned into him at Colorado. I'm not saying that he didn't draw eyes at Jackson State, but I'm saying he didn't draw as many as he did at Colorado. He comes to Colorado, and obviously right away he goes, I'm bringing my own luggage. It's Louis. Hit the portal. Get out. I don't care. That's me paraphrasing some of that. Obviously, the Louis luggage was not me. I'm not a Louis luggage guy. You know, I just have my Nike duffel, and I just go from there. But Coach Prime brings in his Louis luggage. He brings in over 50 transfers. Some of them, like Juwan Mitchell, was brought in right before the season, like literally a week before the season, it seemed like. And it was madness. It was chaos. It was like, who's on the roster? Who's starting? They had so many position battles to settle. And I don't think every position battle was settled even well into the season. I think we were seeing rotations. I think we were seeing certain guys like Levante Bentley, who's probably going to start at linebacker this year. He lost his starting spot almost right away. And then he was back in the starting rotation. Like, it was just pure chaos. And Colorado brings the number one portal class. And last season, I'm going to say it, guys, I think outside of Shador, Travis, and a couple other guys, it was more Shiloh. It was more of a quantity over quality class. I don't think they had the most talented portal class. I think they had obviously the biggest class. And so by that metric, they were the number one transfer portal class. And even looking back, I think there was a lot of excitement about what they brought in. And I don't know if it was always warranted for every position because they brought in, I've gone over it like 10 times, but you go through their their transfers, all 50 of them, and majority of them did not have the impact that you would have expected. Now, granted, there was guys like Shador, Shiloh, Travis, Jimmy Horn, Xavier Weaver who did, but then there was guys who was like, oh, that guy did pretty much nothing. That guy did not have the impact we were hoping. That guy did not really start. That guy barely played. That guy transferred again. So it's one of those things where it's like, did they really have as good of an offseason? This year, their transfer portal class currently ranks as the number 5 class in the country, but it is so much better. And I don't think it's getting talked about enough. I think a lot of people have kind of got that Deion Sanders transfer portal fatigue where it's like, okay, he's bringing in more transfer portal guys. It's great. It's great for him. It's great for Colorado. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to 5 games next year, 4 games, whatever. No, this class, you look at it, and they addressed every major need to the point where I'm like, oh, this team could make a little run. Obviously, their schedule is very difficult. This team, if it all comes together, if everyone does their job, could make a run. I'm not even lying to you. I think they legitimately have, and when I say a run, I'm making a deep run into the Big 12. Like maybe by November, they're 7-1, 7-2. I don't know how many games you play by November, but I think they could start off 5-0. Can they start off 7-0? Can they start off 6-1? It's up for debate. I think maybe they could start off 7-1. They got a Cincinnati game because I would say they could start off 5-0 against in their first 5 games. Then they have Kansas State and Arizona. Not sure. I don't remember the order off the top of my head. I think it's Arizona, Kansas State, or either way, they play Arizona and Kansas State in one order. Those two teams are going to be ranked. And then they have Cincinnati. Do they win one of those against one of those ranked opponents and then beat Cincinnati? I think they could. There's a lot to be excited about this Colorado team. And I just look at what they added. They were horrendous in the trenches last season. I think majority of the guys that started for them last season in the trenches, offensive line specifically, they will not return a single starter on the offensive line. I'm telling you right now, not a single one of those guys that started last season will start again. Now, granted, a couple of them transferred, so that doesn't make it too crazy of a take. But you know what I mean. Even if those guys were back, they wouldn't be starting. Defense line, Shane Cokes is possibly, and Amari McNeil are possibly the only 2 guys that may start. And even then, I don't think they will. Colorado went out and bolstered the offense line. They brought in a whole new offense line, guys that have Power 5 experience, guys that I think when you total up how many sacks they gave up last season, obviously they weren't playing together, but I think it's somewhere around 8 to 12 range between the transfers. Yeah, Colorado gave up 56 sacks last season on Shador Sanders. Imagine if Shador Sanders was sacked 12 times. He probably would have thrown for 1,000 more yards, 10 more touchdowns. He would have been making big plays. Colorado probably wins 3 more games. I think him being sacked all the time not only hurt him physically, but hurt the offense mentally because it took away Sean Lewis's ability to call plays that he wanted to. It took away Coach Prime's confidence at Sean Lewis, and it just limited the playbook. It just limited everything. It limited the receivers. They weren't able to get into their routes where they needed to be because obviously Shedeur Sanders was running for his life 1 second in. So they bolster the offense line. Then you look at the defense line. It's like, okay, defense line, they couldn't stop the run this past season in Boulder. Well, they go out and get a guy like Chidozie Nwanku at Houston. Started. He's undersized at 5'11", basically 300 pounds, but he played quality snaps in the Big 12. They bring in a guy like Anquin Barnes from Alabama, 6'5", 315, big body. Torian Carter, Arkansas, 6'3", 303. They bring in a guy like BJ Green, who was an all Pac-12 player, had 5 sacks this past season. He was a dog. They bring in all these guys in the trenches, and it's like, okay, this Colorado team was terrible in the trenches last season. Everyone said they cannot compete until they get better and get bigger and better in the trenches. They got bigger and better in the trenches. So I think this is a completely under the radar season. Then you look at their secondary. Their secondary wasn't as good as I thought it would be last season. I was like, oh, they have so many good safeties. That's why I kept telling everyone. I was like, it's crazy that they have 6 safeties and they're all talented, all starting caliber. The safeties were all right. But they bring in more secondary help. They bring in all this help. And it's like this Colorado team is a different animal. It's a different monster. And I feel like everyone needs to realize that this Colorado team is much improved compared to last season. And it's going to be quite an interesting year for the Colorado Buffaloes coming up this next season. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Xavier Weaver and his NFL draft stock and where he may go this upcoming NFL draft. Welcome back. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're talking about Xavier Weaver. Obviously, the USF transfer was Shedeur's favorite target, arguably his best all-around target, not named Travis Hunter. Xavier left USF as one of their most accomplished receivers ever. I think he walked away as, I think, the program leader in receptions or something, and he ended up having a career year in Colorado. He had 68 catches, career high 68 catches, for a career high 908 yards, for 13.4 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns, and he was just an all-around dog for Colorado. He also added 2 rushing touchdowns. So you can use him in a multitude of ways. I think his NFL projection is tough. I scoured the internet looking for scouts talking about him, and they all like him. But he's not the fastest. I would say he's the average speed wide receiver. He's not the biggest. He's 6 foot. And this wide receiver class, or 6'1", excuse me, this wide receiver class is probably, I think this is like the 2003 NBA draft of like where it's like LeBron James, Carmelo, D Wade. This is like them, Chris Bosh, for wide receivers. They have so many talented wide receivers. This is the best wide receiver class I feel like I remember seeing. So it's like, where does Xavier fit in the mix? I feel like from what I've gathered, he is a round 4 or round 5 guy with a ceiling of round 3. Strengths that I've kind of seen from him, he gets a lot of separation on his routes. He obviously, and this was one of the reasons if you guys go back to preseason, pre-2023, I was talking about Xavier Weaver as a breakout guy because he turns jump balls, 50-50 balls into like 60-40, 70-30 guys. He plays well above his listed 7'1" or 7'1" height, 6'1" height. Imagine if he was 7'1", that'd be insane. He plays well above that height. And so I feel like he's going to be a really good NFL player. I just feel like he needs to just get a chance. He obviously is not the fastest, could sometimes, and I noticed this at times, and this could just be making business decisions. And this was Colorado receivers as a whole, outside of Travis, maybe. I think there was a tendency for Colorado receivers this past season to kind of, I want to say give up on a play, but they would run out of bounds. And there's nothing wrong with, okay, I got my 20 yards. I'm going to avoid the hit, but maybe make a move every once in a while. Like, is he the most elusive guy after the catch? Probably not. Is he like Jimmy Horn, who could shimmy his way down the sideline, stop on a dime, and spin move a guy into oblivion and still get into the end zone? Probably not. But Xavier Weaver is someone who I think could be a starting caliber NFL receiver right away. And I know you guys are excited about what he brings to the table. I'm going to keep covering him throughout this draft process. process, because I think he has that draft potential. I think he has that NFL caliber wide receiver potential. I don't know if he's the best receiver on an NFL team, but it wouldn't shock me if he's like the number 2 or number 3 guy, where it's like that guy's always open and he's always making plays, because that's exactly what Xavier Weaver did for Colorado. And you guys comment below which team you think is the best fit for him, because I think there's a few teams that stand out. I think one, any team that has a young quarterback or a young wide receiver core would be a good one. Houston Texans, for instance, they have Tank Dell. I feel like he could be like the perfect pairing, because Tank Dell reminds me of Jimmy Horn in the sense that he's fast. He's a speedy route runner guy. Xavier Weaver is a little bit bigger. Pair him up with him. Tank Dell's going to open things up for Xavier Weaver. Xavier Weaver will be open all the time. The Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes needs weapons. Obviously, they have a first-round pick, 32nd pick overall, and I know a lot of people are projecting them to draft like Adonai Mitchell or Xavier Weaver from Texas or Ladd McConkey from Georgia. Obviously, they're not going to take Xavier Weaver with that pick, but maybe they draft him later in the draft. Maybe they take a chance on him and give Patrick Mahomes more weapons, because obviously, Kadarius Toney, the Kadarius Toney experiment needs to end. It needs to be over, and Xavier Weaver is a proven commodity. And then you look at a team like the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, he's not as big as Brandon Ayuk, I don't even know how tall he is, but he just looks big. He is someone, I would say, if I had to guess, I'm going to look it up right now as I'm talking to you guys. I would say he's 6'3". That'd be my guess. He is listed at, he's only listed at 6'1". Interesting. Okay. I thought he just looks big. Maybe he replaces Brandon Ayuk for the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, there's some trouble in paradise. I'm a 49er fan myself. I get it. Brandon Ayuk's brother or friend or whoever it was, his girlfriend, they all been posting like that was his final hurrah in San Francisco. Brandon Ayuk himself was upset after the Super Bowl. So maybe Xavier Weaver goes there. You guys comment below which team you think he should go to. I think Xavier Weaver, whoever drafts him, they're getting a very good pro. You guys comment below who you think he should go to. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making me your first listen of the day. Like I say all the time, we're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and I will see you guys tomorrow with a very special guest. You guys won't want to miss out.